So Mark, hello again. This is the next video, the second video that we're doing,
Idan.
and and
Hello.
so you you that took you and brought you over here.
Yeah.
What was your next step? What did you do?
We came up north. It was still a very much a young kibbutz. It was only had been settled about 2 or 3 years before we came. We're on the kibbutz until now about 42 years. So we're here quite a long time. Like it was still the original kibbutz framework.
It was
In
the
a
old
sense,
kibbutz,
yeah, the
the
old
old
style.
fashioned
Yeah, well, not old
style,
fashioned. And I want
old style.
the conventional kibbutz agricultural
Did you like
settlement.
it?
Well, that's the reason I came. I mean, that was the reason I came. What we see as a kibbutz today has significantly changed economically and work-wise and business-wise. To say that I'm happy about that, I'm disappointed.
What,
But
from your point of view, stayed an old style kibbutz?
well, let me tell you a little bit about what we did. We started working in all the different work branches. We worked in the orchards, and we worked in the cattle, and we worked in the factory. The plastics factory was here, and we worked. We would wake up in the middle of the night to load chickens to being sent to market, and all of those very much kibbutz things. Then we would also do night watch duty, where we'd travel through the whole night in a car and watching the kibbutz and anything else that we had to make sure that wouldn't be broken into. So we were really, your mother and I were really into settlement building. We wanted to, this was going to be our creation. And that's what we were doing. It was socially, culturally, work-wise. What was unfortunate, though, is that when we had the dining room, and you would work in pairs, and it was decided that your mother and I would not work in a pair anymore because it was literally a catastrophe. The arguing and who would tell who what to do, as you quite well know, didn't work out too well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was amazing how we were already divided up in terms of a work group. But it was very exciting. I worked in the factory. I took part in building the buildings. And if you hear that noise, that background noise of hammering away, that means a new part of the kibbutz is being built. And the new settlement building is going on until this day. Then I worked in the factory, and then at one point the situation was such in terms of what was happening in tourism in Israel and the need for country lodging, as we would say. And I decided to, because I guess I have it in my genes to like to do things from the start. And I had this opportunity to create something from the start on the kibbutz, and that's how the tourism started.
So you
That
actually
you're managing today.
So you actually started this country lodging that we see all around us. Actually,
Country lodging, yes.
country lodging. Yeah, you started the tourism at Kibbutz Moran
Yeah.
30 years ago, actually.
Yeah. What actually happened is that we had the buildings that you see around us were the original buildings that were they consist of rooms of about 24 square meters, which is very small. It wasn't good for families. It was only good for single people, who are many of the people who came originally to the kibbutz. And the new family apartments were being built. So we had this stock of apartments of about 25 rooms that, well, what do we do with them? What do we do with them? And then we came up with this idea of creating a youth hostel for the school trips.
Oh, okay.
As you know,
Yeah.
the school getting back to nature in terms of Zionism is based on having this Jewish connection, renewing the connection to the land. And many of the schools go south, they go north, and we decided that we would become a place for the schools to sleep and have food and breakfast. And we also gave them little lectures about what it meant to come up to the Galilee and what have you. And that's how it started. And little by little, we moved from being a youth hostel to being a sort of a very simple bread and breakfast. And then we just moved up the line. And today, we have to say it's a full-grown kibbutz guest lodge with all the facilities that a guest lodge should have in terms of facilities and service and what have you.
So do you remember any one funny story about
Yeah, I remember with Yossi. You know, Yossi and I. Yossi eventually joined me, and these are hotel types of stories, but this type of hotel story can only happen on a kibbutz kibbutz operation where the gentleman came in with his family, got into the room, and then he came back to us and he said, "Listen, I'm a tall guy and my feet hang over the bed at a pretty much of an extent, and they were almost by my knees." And he said, "Well, what are you going to do about that? It's not comfortable for me to sleep." And here Yossi and I had to. So first of all, we sort of like smirked and said, "What are we going to do?" Well, we had to sort of come get something together so this gentleman would have a long enough bed to sleep on. So there were many other stories. Some I could tell, some I can't necessarily tell, because when they took place, we weren't sure how we would find ourselves out of them. But that's part of creating a new business. A new business on a kibbutz. You make mistakes, you correct them, you say we're sorry, and then you come back and you get the compliments. But actually, Kibbutz Moran was one of the first settlements to really get into country lodging, to the extent that many of the older kibbutzim, as well as in the south, as up north, came to us to learn what does it mean to have tourism in a kibbutz environment. And
it's very, very nice.
we sort of pioneered the way for having a kibbutz and with tourism. And another, if you ask me about some funny stories, we were also the first kibbutz to decide, because 50% of the population in Israel is kosher. They must have kosher food. And I realized that marketing-wise, we would have to have a kosher kitchen. And sure enough, we brought it to vote, and it was voted upon that we would make our kitchen, the kibbutz cooperative kitchen, kosher, which was a tremendous revolution.
Right.
A tremendous revolution.
So for that, I think for that and many other funny stories, we are gonna leave it for the next video.
Okay.
So Mark, thank you very much.
Dad.
And I hope that we'll meet you again for the next video.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.